UFC Fight Night, aka UFC Fight Island 7. We have Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. Of course, we've given you our preliminary picks already, so let's get into the main card. We have 5 fights on this main card. What I will say is, if you are a fan of the UFC, you will enjoy a lot of these fights, a really exciting main card that we have coming up. But of course, Boxing MMA Picks, we are here to give you our UFC analysis, UFC breakdown, tell you which fights to really go for, which fights to avoid, and hopefully we can make everyone money. So, of course, on this main card, like I mentioned, we have 5 fights. Let's get right into fight number 1. We have Punahele Soriano versus Dusko Todorovic. And what can I say about both of these fighters? I'll start with Soriano. He came from LFA, came from Dana White Contender Series, so he's definitely moved up the ranks in the way that he's wanted to. He's a southpaw, has a lot of pop in that left hand, especially as a counter, so definitely look for that in the fight. I think that has to be his favorite punch. He looked really strong in different grappling situations. If you watch his fight versus Oscar Piechota, that was his UFC debut. Take a look at that fight. A lot of grappling situations where he just looked really strong, really heavy, not really strong for the weight class, I should say. What I will say about him, though, I notice is that he is a little slow. I don't think his footwork is amazing. And to me, he's almost one-dimensional. He doesn't really have too much diversity in his game. He winds up a bit. He throws one punch at a time pretty often. And he's only been to round 3 once. So that's something that possibly could play a factor here. When it comes to Todorovic, I like his striking. I think he's a much more diverse MMA striker. I like this pace that he has about him. It's a pretty steady pace. It's a pretty effective pace. Throws a decent amount of strikes, ends up winning rounds in that way. I like the calf kick specifically that he does, and I think that he's a pretty intelligent striker and that he'll pick his spots pretty well. What concerns me about Dusko is that he kind of jumps or lunges into his strikes at times. And I can see him getting caught, especially by somebody like Soriano in that situation. And I would say probably the biggest X factor of this fight is his defensive habits. As good as they are, he kind of has this interesting way of avoiding punches where he just leans back, kind of Ali style. We've seen people like Daquan Townsend piece him up with that type of defensive style. So it's going to be really interesting to see if Soriano catches him, again, with that counter left. What I will say is that Soriano could very much put this guy to sleep. But what I am going to count on is I'm going to count on Dusko Todorovic pretty much outpointing Soriano with more pace, with just a little bit more activity, and sort of carrying that pace throughout all 3 rounds. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I think this is a really tough fight. First thing I'll say on this fight is don't bet this fight. This is likely the hardest fight on this card. Dusko, confident fighter. He's young. He's only, 25?
24? Yeah, 24, 25, something like that.
But he's very confident. He's well-rounded. His striking, I don't like the way he keeps his head up, like stiff up, like to get hit with a counter. But he's very active again. He's a very active striker. One thing that's good in his fight game is that he has really good cardio. So second, third round, he's gonna keep going, right? He's gonna keep the pace going. Soriano, to me, he's like a old school Robbie Lawler type fighter. He's looking to knock you out. He has power. If he touches Dusko with that left, he can definitely knock him out. He's a Division III wrestler. So Dusko usually goes for takedowns. So I'm not sure how successful he's going to be there. Again, I'm not betting this fight, but for the sake of the channel, I'll pick Dusko, banking on that. Soriano's cardio is not the greatest, and after the first round, if Dusko survives that first round, I really feel that Dusko's just gonna put on the pace, and Soriano's gonna gas out. But again, the reason I'm not betting this fight, if I do make a bet, it's dog or pass. I'll put a bet on Soriano because I really feel that He has that power. He has that one-touch power. You can knock him out cold in that first round, and I think his striking is really good. I don't think it's technical, but I think it's quick enough. His hand speed is quick enough that the way Dusko leaves his head out there, this is why I'm not putting any money down on Dusko this weekend. But for the sake of the channel, I'll go with the more well-rounded guy. But if I do make a last-minute bet, I actually would put money on Soriano. It's a dogger pass for me because I think Soriano can literally put him out there. Yes, if Soriano doesn't gas out, he wins this fight to me, in my opinion. So anyone that's listening to me, I'm saying for the sake of the channel, I'll go Dusko. But if I had to make a bet, I'm going to go Soriano because I feel that with those odds, I think it's worth it. And I think he has a big path to victory. He fixed his cardio. Dusko's in trouble. So, but yeah, my pick is Dusko. I wouldn't recommend betting this fight, period. But if I have to make a choice, yeah, I'm going to go Dusko.
Yeah, agreed. And yeah, this probably is going to be one of those fights that you want to wait until they're walking into the ring before you make a pick, if you make a pick at all. I mean, two undefeated fighters. So again, getting the main card started off pretty hot there. Let's see what happens. Let's move on to fight number 2. We have everyone's favorite fighter of 2020, Joaquin Buckley, and he's facing Ultimate Fighter winner, Alessio Di Chirico. What can I say about this fight? I am going to go with Buckley. The reason why I'm going to go with Buckley is when I take a look at the Chirico 3-fight losing streak after winning the tough finale back in 2018. That's not the way that you want to represent yourself in the UFC. Definitely, I can see confidence potentially being an issue there. I think his stand-up is okay. He loves that overhand right, especially coming off of a block or a counter situation. His movement is okay. I wouldn't say he cuts the ring off amazingly, but I think he has some pretty decent control of the center of the octagon at times. I actually like his head movement in the stand-up, so that's something that will be very interesting. And I've seen him shoot for the takedown. I've seen him land the takedown as well. And I've seen him show some pretty decent, or okay, I should say, takedown defense at times, where even if he does get taken down, he kind of has that ability to get up. That being said, in some ways, it's kind of how I feel about Punahele Soriano in the previous fight. He kind of only shows me one dimension, Alessio Di Chirico. He only really shows me one dimension, and he kind of slows as the fight goes on. I think with Joaquin Buckley, I'm going to put it this way. I think he's a bit more explosive. I think he's a bit stronger. I think he's a bit faster. I think his boxing is better. And honestly, I'm going to bank on him to continue riding the hot streak, right? I think it's important to note that you can sort of tell when the UFC wants a certain fighter to win. I feel like Buckley is the fighter in this situation. I feel like to beat Buckley, you have to really push the pace on him, or you have to outstrike him. I mean, we saw what someone like Kevin Holland did to him, for example. I don't think Di Chirico can do that. And I do think this fight will stay on the feet. So ultimately, I'm going to have to go with the fighter who I feel is better on the feet in the fight that I feel will stay on the feet. So I'm going to go with Joaquin Buckley on this one.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing though, I don't think I think you might be mistaken with Chirico. I don't think he was on the Ultimate Fighter. He's not. I don't think he was on the. Was it Chirico? You said it was on the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain about that one.
Yeah, check that out. Check that out. But let me go into the prediction here. But yeah, so I'm with you on Joaquin Buckley. One thing I really like about Joaquin Buckley is striking, but he keeps up a pace, and he actually keeps it up for the first, second. He can keep it up for a pretty surprising long period of time.
You know what I'm mixing it up with? Let me cut you off for a second. I'm mixing it up for the Ultimate Fighter finale. He had a fight on there. My apologies. Carry on.
No. I just want to correct that. Yeah, I knew it was a mistake, but yeah, Joaquin Buckley. I like his striking. I like his speed. I like his power. He has that Tyson style where he goes in, he kind of dodges, and he lands a power punch. He'll go to the body. Di Chirico has that slow pace. He has that slow pace. He's definitely able to win this fight. If he's able to just hang around. If Buckley gasses, Chirico's going to be hanging around, and Chirico's going to capitalize. But Buckley has shown me that he's not going to gas. And if anyone's gonna get hurt through the strikes that are thrown by each side, I'm gonna go with Buckley winning this fight here. I think this is a good spot for Buckley. I agree the UFC is setting him up to win this fight. They're putting him in a really good position against a guy that, yeah, Chirico is definitely experienced, so it's definitely gonna make Buckley a legitimate fighter in that division. But this is a fighter that, if you really look at their skill set, this is a fight where Buckley can exploit, just like his previous fight he had. He's going to be too quick. He's going to have the power advantage. And if things get sticky, I think Buckley can actually get the takedown. He can actually drop for a takedown. And that's another avenue for Buckley as well. I think he's going to have the better wrestling in this match for sure. And he's going to have the better striking. So, yeah, I like Buckley. I think he's better everywhere. I give Chirico the experience. I give Chirico the length. But aside from that, I can't give him any other advantage at this point. So I'm going to go with Buckley. Buckley's my pick here to win this fight.
Also interesting to note, even though Chirico is the taller fighter, Buckley has the 2-inch reach advantage. So that's going to be something that's really interesting to watch in this fight. Let's move on to fight number 3. We have Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Jingliang Li. I'm going to keep this one real short. I'm going with Santiago all the way on this one. I mean, we have a common opponent alert for this fight. Both fighters have gone up against Neil Magny. We saw Neil Magny beat Li Jingliang, even though Jingliang had a moment where he kind of hurt him, I think in round 1. I think it was in the first half of round 1, if I'm not mistaken. But Magny went on to win that fight. And Santiago put Magny to sleep in round 4. So that kind of tells you the direction that I'm going to go with on this one. I mean, Santiago is riding a 7-fight winning streak. And if you look at some of the names that he's faced, Court McGee, Gunnar Nelson, Platinum Perry, Neil Magny, some really quality opponents that he's been facing. My only concern with him is he's been inactive for 2 years. The last time he fought, I think it was November 2018, if I'm not mistaken. So just over 2 years at this point. What I can say about him from an analysis perspective, I love his movement. I think he's probably one of the better fighters in the UFC that I've seen when it comes to actually cutting the ring off and not chasing his opponent. I like his control of distance. I like his use of fakes and feints. I think he does it at a very high pace where the opponent is worried as to whether or not he's going to charge forward or not. And I think he has really good head movement to go along with all of that. On top of all that, I do trust his fight IQ. I think he mixes up the strikes pretty well. I think he finds the openings. Although it's not the cleanest boxing, I do really like his jab. It's a pretty reachy jab. It's a pretty long jab. You know, he'll use it to split your guard. He'll follow it up with a really good calf kick. And you know what? He has some pace. He has some pop behind those punches as well. And that carries on late into fights, as I mentioned, knocking out Neil Magny halfway through round 4. For Jingliang, I mean, you get kind of that Chinese style of stand-up that I mentioned in the prelims. You know, wrestling attempts at times, he'll kind of stay on your back, solid takedown defense. But outside of that, I'm kind of going Santiago all the way on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that. I like Santiago in this spot. Li Jingliang, yeah, he's definitely he definitely has pop. He definitely has power. He has the ability to definitely knock Santiago out. But when you look at Li Jingliang, you actually look at, he lost to Neil Magny, a fight that he was favored in. He has one good win. He has one strong win versus Alessio Zaleski. He beat David Zawada. He beat Daichi Avi, Zach Otto, Frank Camacho, Bobby Nash. Like, he lost to Kita Nakamura. So his wins on his record, he doesn't really have that many wins at that high level. He does have that good win with Zaleski. But when you look at Ponzinibbio, he has Magny, Mike Perry, Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson, that's a big win. That's a well-rounded fighter. Nordin Talib, he beat him Nordin Talib is a really good striker, and he beat him in his element. Zach Cummins, so he dealt with a guy that can grapple. Court McGee, another grappler. So this guy, Santiago, he's a boxer. He's going to go in there. He has really good low kicks. Yeah, he's been out for a while, but I think this allowed him to look at his game. It allowed him to look at where he's at, like allowed him to improve. So just like when who did a Korean Zombie fight? Ortega.
Yeah,
Ortega.
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, when you have that long period of time away from the game, you have your coaches, you have all your resources. You can actually sit back and you can actually you can change. You can change in a good positive way. So I think that time away from the octagon is going to help Santiago. I think this is a fight that the UFC is setting him up for. He's 27-3. He's fighting a straightforward fighter that's going to look to take his head off. Yeah, I'm going to go with Santiago here, and I'm pretty confident here he's going to get this done.
Yeah, I echo the confidence. I think we can kind of echo the same message. They're pretty confident in Santiago winning that fight. In that case, let's move on to our co-main event. Again, we always seem to go from a fight we're pretty confident in to a fight that is much trickier than it looks. We have our co-main event, Carlos Condit versus Matt Brown. I'm gonna throw this one to you. How do you see this fight going?
Okay, so looking at this fight, this is a really hard fight. This fight happened years ago. It would be a great thing. We're looking at Matt Brown. We know what we're getting from him. He wants to stand. He wants to bang. He had a good showing versus Miguel Baeza until he got clocked in the second round. But he was looking good. He actually had Baeza hurt. Before that, he finished Ben Saunders, Diego Sanchez. But both these guys, I don't even think they're in the UFC anymore. Then before that, lost to Cerrone, Jake Ellenberger, Damian Maia. That Cerrone loss, that when he kicked his face off and he broke his jaw, I think that changed Matt Brown, because ever since that, he hasn't been the same. He's still good. He's still dangerous. I think he can actually hurt Condit in this fight. But I like Condit here. I'm not confident on this pick, but I like Condit here. He's really defensive. He just moves around the ring. He avoids damage. He knows how to. And if you look at his losses that he's had, Mike Chiesa, Alex Oliveira, Neil Magny, Damian Maia. Okay, so all those losses, those guys had to take him to the ground. They had to go on the ground with him. He lost to Robbie Lawler. Some people thought he won that fight. And that was a striking fight. There was no ground, none of that wrestling, no grappling, no jiu-jitsu. So he won that fight, or he lost that fight. But some people, again, like it's pretty controversial. It's a close fight. I had Robbie Lawler, but again, I can see how Condit won that fight. And then he beat Thiago Alves. He lost to Woodley. He had an injury in that fight, a fight he was looking good in. So when they strike with Condit, he wins. When they wrestle him, Condit loses. So Matt Brown's gonna stand up and bang. He's gonna strike. I can see him having success early, but as the fight goes on, I see Condit running away with this. I think he's gonna win this fight. Let's go. I'm gonna go with Condit here.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. The only thing I'll add to that from an analysis perspective, I mean, Condit kind of gives you that somewhat awkward southpaw stance. He does have those moments where he'll switch stance in spot situations, land a strike or two, and then switch back into that southpaw stance. So look out for that. I think he mixes his strikes up really well. Punches, kicks, knees, different angles, things like that. He has a really sneaky right hook counter. And that's something that I'm going to be looking for in this fight as well. As for Matt Brown, I mean, like you mentioned, he's probably going to come out and slug. I mean, at 40 years old, still has pop, to your point, in that Baeza fight. He hurt him. I think he dropped Baeza in round 1, if I'm not mistaken. But the thing with Condit, coming off that 2-year layoff, we sort of questioned what he would look like. If my memory serves me correctly, after that fight, he was speaking in a way where he's like, yeah, I'm here to be a contender. So it's going to be very interesting from an attitude perspective. We know Matt Brown probably knows that he's at the end of his career, but Condit seems to pretty much have that second wind, if you want to call it. And if he can put 2 wins together, I mean, we'll see what happens, right? So, I agree with Carlos Condit being the pick here. But to your point, not the safest fight to bet on. Brown could definitely hurt him, and anything can happen in some ways, even though we're both going with Carlos Condit. Let's move on then to our main event. We have Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. Featherweight main event. The winner probably faces the champion, perhaps. In terms of how I feel about this fight, I mean, it's hard to analyze fights where both fighters have everything. And that's sort of what we're presented with in this fight. Both fighters possess pretty much all the skills in the UFC that you could ask for. With Holloway, of course, he's going to give you a real good pace, a good control of the octagon, complete striking package. Kattar, I mean, clean, very controlled pace. I think he's the much more technical fighter. I think he has great technical movement, great technical boxing. The boxing defense is fantastic. He uses the body punch, which very few UFC fighters do. His IQ is very high. And again, I think he mixes up the striking really well, finding those openings with those punches to the body and just using different punches and kicks at different angles. Um, it's hard. It's hard to judge this one because my gut says that, or put it this way, my brain says Calvin Kattar wins. I think he's technically the better fighter in terms of the stand-up technically. I think this fight stays on the feet. So I can see a situation where Calvin Kattar is just the better technical stand-up artist. But at the same time, I think about Max Holloway. I think about his first loss to Volkanovski. I think about his second loss to Volkanovski, which was a split decision. And I remember you and I watched that fight. I actually had Max winning it, and you couldn't believe it. I have to feel that Max Holloway has this X factor about him where he's trying to let everyone know that he's not done yet, and he's not anywhere close to done yet. But it's tough. What happens when your gut says Holloway but your brain says Kattar? I don't know which one to go with. I'm gonna turn this to you as I think about which one I want to go with.
Yeah, it's a tough fight, but I hear Max said he doesn't care about that Volkanovski loss because 80% of the people in the world thinks he won the fight. You know, one thing I'll tell you, Harris, is that I'm one of the 20% that thought he lost the fight because it was a close fight. But yeah, I know a lot of people will flame me, but I thought Volkanovski won that second fight too. Like I thought he edged it. So, but that's my opinion. So let's go to this fight. Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar. You know what we're getting from the Max Holloway? Relentless pressure, good striker, good boxer. His biggest thing is his cardio. Is his cardio, right? So with Calvin Kattar though, this is my boy. I like Calvin Kattar. Well, Calvin Kattar, where you get from him is a guy that can counter, a guy that can really box, a guy that has the new style. Like he's the new style. He's the new thing that's going on. Like Holloway is Holloway. I'm not saying he's old school like Royce Gracie, but he's a bit older, right? So this is a tough fight. I know a lot of people are going to go with Holloway in this fight, but I really like Calvin Kattar in this fight because Holloway's used to fighting a lot of shorter fighters. This is one of the first This is a change. He's fighting someone the same height as him or taller than him.
Yep.
He's used to having that height, that reach.
A 3-inch reach advantage as well.
Who has a reach advantage?
Kattar by 3 inches.
Exactly. So I think when he fought Poirier, he didn't have the reach advantage as well. But Kattar has the skills. Like I'm not saying he's Poirier, but he definitely has the skills to exploit. To do exactly the same game plan Poirier did, even though that's not his style. He can counter Holloway all night if he wants. And the cardio game. Remember, Kattar was fighting. Kattar had a tough fight versus Zabit. And Zabit won the first 2 rounds, and then Kattar was bringing it on the 3rd round. Kattar won that 3rd round on every judge's card, on every media, watching that fight's card. So you got to know that. You got to believe that his cardio is not that bad. His cardio is not like the guys that Holloway has been beating using his cardio. Example, like the Jose Aldos, the Anthony Pettises, the Ricardo Lamases. These guys, where the cardio kind of slows down in the 3rd round. Kattar is not that guy. Kattar is like a Dustin Poirier. I'm not saying he's like a Volkanovski with the cardio. But Kattar is not going to gas out in the 2nd, 3rd round. I'm banking on Kattar winning the first 3 rounds. And I think that, yeah, Holloway might come on later, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kattar wins every round and wins this fight the same way that Justin Gaethje beat Ferguson. I won't be surprised.
Yeah, I like that comparison.
I'm going to lay that down. I'm going to lay that down. It's going to be like that. Ferguson, it's going to be like Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje. Watch.
That's a great comparison. And I think as I think this through, I have to go with my brain. I mean, I think if we're giving the listeners the betting perspective, I think Kattar is the smarter bet, especially at those odds. And I think this is going to be one of those fights, almost like Volkanovski 2, where you're kind of saying to yourself, man, I hope Max turns it up, or I hope Max runs away with it, and it just doesn't quite happen. So I'm going to go with my brain on this one. I'm going to go with Calvin Kattar as the underdog. But again, this one's going to be a very intriguing fight, to say the least. Let's take it straight to Vegas, though. We're considering the entire card at this point. Who do we like in terms of golden picks? Let's give the listeners. I'm thinking two. I'm thinking 2 golden picks that we can give the listeners.
Yeah, I'll give the first one. Let me go. Both. Okay, let's do this. This is the golden pick. You give one your best pick. I give my best pick, and that's it. So I'm gonna say Ramazan Emeev.
Okay, Emeev. So let's put that on the golden ticket. I'm gonna go with. I think Santiago Ponzinibbio has to be my most confident pick on the card.
Yeah, I like that.
Put both of those together, you get a golden ticket at that point. You put $100 on it, it's going to return $82 of profit.
Slap 250 on that. Slap 250 on that. What does it look like?
250. Let's take a look.
For the players, man. For the players, you know.
To the players, let's do it. You're gonna get $204 of profit.
All right, that's not bad.
That's pretty good.
For like solid picks, you can sit back and drink your coffee. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, and let's give them one underdog. Let's go with one underdog pick that we're going to give our listeners.
Okay, Jocelyn Edwards.
Yep. Even though that is even money now, to your point.
But it was a big underdog. It opened up, eh?
That started off as an underdog, so that definitely counts in my eyes.
You want me to throw another underdog on there?
Let's throw another
one for them. Actually, I'll leave that alone.
Yeah, let's not combine underdog picks in that point. I think the next best underdog pick at that point has to be Calvin Kattar. Like I said, I mean, extremely tough fight, but I got to go with my brain on that one. And with those odds, I kind of like a straight up bet on Calvin Kattar.
Yeah, I can see him. I like him in that spot. Calvin Kattar, watch. I'm looking at Calvin, man. I think he has that. I think this is a good matchup for him.
Okay. I like it. Let's finish off the video at that point. Boxing MMA picks. You guys already know what it is. UFC Fight Night, aka UFC Fight Island 7. Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. Let's enjoy this event. It's an early event, and let's make this money.
Let's go.